So for video one of the digestive system, I'm going to take you through a brief overview of how your digestive system works, and also take a look at the oral cavity, the esophagus, and how they actually function before food gets into our stomach. So the first thing is another name for our digestive system is what we call the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract. So sometimes you'll hear people say that they have to go to a GI doctor, and that's exactly what they're looking at. Usually they have a stomach issue or something going on in their intestines, and this is what's called an alimentary canal, which means it's open on both ends. So we have it open in the oral cavity, and it's also open in what we call our anus, or at the end where we defecate from. Now the GI tract can be stimulated by various different things. One, obviously, when we're eating, the actual motion of chewing and tasting our food, but we can also get it activated just from the sight, smell, taste of food can make you feel hungry and get your GI tract moving along. They start to produce secretions, and you start to feel hungry just from the smell of something. Okay, it's also high in nerves and blood vessels. The blood vessels are important in getting your organs to actually function, because a lot of your organs move, just like muscles move. So when you are digesting food, blood will rush to those organs that are digesting it, which means you have less blood in other areas of the body, and that's one of the reasons why with swimming, it was always said that you shouldn't go swimming right after eating, and that can lead to cramping because there's less blood in your muscles. It's also made of simple columnar cells, which deal with secretions. It secretes liquid, sometimes just to lubricate, but also has secretions with enzymes in them to break things down. And then lastly, the GI tract uses peristalsis to move food, and that is through a rhythmic squeezing of the food, which is called a bolus sometimes when it comes out of your mouth. It's just a in-depth look at the different layers of some of our digestive system organs and tissues, which brings us to the first area, which is our mouth. Okay, the mouth, you have a hard palate, which you can see right here, which is the roof of your mouth. It's very, very hard. And some food can actually get mashed up against there, but really we use our teeth for mashing. We also have what's called your soft palate, which your uvula is attached to. And that is what we saw last chapter in the respiratory system. We were talking about when you swallow food, it will cover the nasal passage so food doesn't go up. And that's the reason why sometimes if you laugh after swallowing soda, it feels like it comes up through your nose. It feels that way because it actually does, because after you're done swallowing, the uvula will relax and soda or food will be able to come up and out through your nose. Okay, we also have our tongue, which helps move food around in our mouth to manage it onto our teeth so they can chew the food better. Okay, just a fact about what happens with children's tongues. You might have heard someone saying that they're tongue-tied. It's a actual problem that we see with young children, and it's what's called the lingual frenulum, and they can actually surgically cut that so the tongue can move more. If it doesn't get cut, we usually see more children with issues with talking or pronouncing specific words. Okay, we have all of our teeth. Our teeth, the job of our teeth is different depending on which ones we look at. We have incisors for tearing and biting, canines for really holding on to meat as we tear it, and then you have your premolars and molars, which are used for mashing the food. Okay, your teeth have a strong enamel layer. It's actually the strongest substance in your body, but through mineralization, through the breakdown of it from what we eat, it can actually start to fall apart and decay. And that's why sometimes, we always say from a young age, you should really take care of your teeth, because once they kind of go, it's impossible to really get them back without some major surgery, maybe with implants and what have you. Okay, our teeth's job is to masticate, which means to chew our food and form a bolus. A bolus is a round ball of food that we can then swallow easier to move down our GI tract. Inside of our mouth, we have what are called salivary glands, and inside of there you have what's called salivary amylase. And this amylase, when it comes in contact with starch, it will actually start to break down starch into simple sugars. Here we're talking about maltose. Okay, starch is a larger sugar molecule, if you want to think of it that way, or carbohydrate, and it will break it down into smaller pieces using this salivary amylase. So starch digestion starts first in your mouth, and then as it moves through the tract, that amylase continues to work as best as it possibly can. Down the esophagus it goes, and it passes to the back of our throat, which is called the pharynx. And in the back of our throat, you now swallow it into your larynx. And your larynx, if you remember, has what's called the epiglottis. And the epiglottis is what covers over your trachea or your windpipe. It'll cover that when food comes down so you don't choke. So if you take a big inhale with food in the back of your mouth, the food will go down your trachea and you'll start to choke. So when you regularly swallow food, we want the epiglottis to cover the trachea and then move its way down the esophagus using peristalsis into the stomach. Okay. Very quickly, the linings of your esophagus, you have your mucus layer, or mucosa, and food runs down the middle of that. We want that lubricated so that bolus of food can continue to move. We also have a nervous layer, a muscular layer, and then you have the outermost layer called the peritoneum. That peritoneum is that outer serous membrane that wraps around your entire digestive system. Okay, we will continue on with more in the next video and inside the classroom.